Hey guys, it's Sam. I'm really excited to be back tonight. I have Hunter Flesh joining us. He is from the Ed Essentials podcast. And we're going to be talking all about teaching interview tips, but we're going to be focusing in on one area in particular. And that area is how do you research a school and how do you find that best fit? Friends, I know it can be really tough because you want to sign that contract, but you want to make sure that it's the right fit for you. So that is what we're talking about today. And welcome, Hunter. Hey, good to see ya.
Hey, good to see you too.
Hey, yeah, I'm glad we figured out the time zones. Those are hard.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So, would you mind sharing a little bit about your teaching story? What brought you into education and where you are now?
Sure. So my name is Hunter Flesh, for those that know me. I come from a line of teachers, so both my parents are teachers, my grandparents are teachers. My dad still teaches to this day, same school, same district, 31-year
That's
science
exciting.
teacher. And then my mom is a retired administrator. So growing up with parents as teachers, and I say my sisters did not go into education, so I had to. But no, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, and then I'm a year and a half in teaching seventh grade science here in the Des Moines area in
Yay.
Iowa. So loving it.
And are you a triplet?
I
I
am.
thought
Yeah.
I saw that at one point go
Yeah.
across a story or a post.
Yeah. I know that's like my
That's
icebreaker of all time. It's like, what's one interesting fact about you? Well, I'm a triplet.
that's my interesting fact, and
Yeah,
we're done.
exactly.
And I'll leave now.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, Hunter, for sharing that. I love how you come from a family of teachers. And for some of us, maybe that we have a similar story that we've come from a family of teachers or teaching is in our blood or we've always wanted to be an educator. For some of us, maybe we had an impactful educator who influenced our life in such a way that, yeah, I think I want to get into this teaching thing.
Hmm.
Or maybe, like me, I am not from a family of teachers. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but wasn't 100% sure. But I'm so glad. I think teaching, it's like a bug. Once it gets you, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm in.
Exactly. It's like once you start envisioning yourself as that teacher in that moment, I think when you get in the classroom and you're like, whoa, like this can all be mine. And like, I get to see that kid's light bulb go off like every day. That's pretty sweet.
Yes.
It's like
Sign
that
me
feeling. You
up, right?
exactly. You can't turn away from that. So
Absolutely not. I love it. So, Hunter, today we're talking all about interviews. We're focusing on a specific part of interviews.
yeah.
What does it mean to research a school? Because we know our teacher candidates hear that all the time. Research the school, research the school. Okay, but what does that really mean? Like, break it down for us. And then also, we're like, I did a live with Hannah Turk, I think it was last week, where we talked about the fear of missing out. So,
Mm.
if we have a contract or if we have like a job offer, should we sign it? Should we wait? What if something else comes along? How do we take a breath, take a beat, and really like find the right fit for us? So that's what we're focusing on conversation for tonight. So let's start with how do you research a school? What exactly does that mean? And what are some things we should be looking for in a district?
Yeah, hard hitting questions, and I love it because this is like the nitty gritty stuff that they don't tell you about. So I'm really glad that you're
No.
talking to your students about it because I wish I had that. And they tell you the typical stuff of research the school, see what it's about, take a visit, and then when you interview, you kind of figure it all out. Well, you can go a lot deeper than that. I mean, the first step, obviously, this is like a no brainer for everybody. Obviously, you research the website, figure out what can you find just surface level, what is going on with this school. What's the mission statement? What's their values? What are the things that they're posting on social media? What's the size of the school? I mean, you can get a lot just by looking at the staff. What's the diversity of the staff? For me, I'm a seventh grade science teacher. Are there going to be other seventh grade science teachers with me? What's
Mm-hmm.
my team going to look like? So, I mean, just going through the website, you can find a lot of that information. But I'd say beyond that, thinking about any any way that you can find strategic plans or initiatives that are happening within the school, I think that can be super valuable because it not only shows like it goes beyond the mission statement of the school. Yes, that's
Right.
all aspects of a school and what they value, but it also shows with a strategic plan like where that school is at. And so you can kind of identify, oh, this school really values social emotional learning. That's something I'm really about. Or this school is switching over to a standards reference grading system. And I'm mentioning both of those things because both of those things are in our strategic plan for our school. And so that gives you an idea of, okay, well, if I'm in that school, how would I operate or how would I feel about those things? And so it just gives you a little bit of that taste of being in the school without being in the school yet. So, I mean, going through the website's the big thing, but really knowing what to look for on there is important.
Right. It's kind of like having a little roadmap and a little secret insight into the school, not just looking at their website, but also digging into their social media. A good friend of mine, Julia Pucci, she shares to be nosy on the website and on social. So like turn on notifications for that district or that school. They don't know that you turned on notifications for them, but you know.
Literally, we were doing assistant principal interviews, and I was lucky enough to be part of that. And one of the administrators that came in, he interviewed and said, "Oh, Hunter Flesh, I saw that you were in that. You went on a field trip last year with those students, and you were on the roller skates because they had posted a cover video of it." And so it's like, that's kind of, it seems like a little creepy, but it's like, honestly, that goes the extra mile. Like that's when you're comparing each candidate, it's going to separate you of like, oh, well, this person really went above and beyond. Even if you're lacking in some other areas, it shows that you cared enough and that you have the drive enough to commit to the school. And that's honestly sometimes the deciding factor.
Right. And you want to stand out in that interview. You kind of want to be a horse of a different color, so to speak, from Wizard of Oz. You know, you want to stand out in that interview. And one way to do that is to do your research. And I love how you talked about the strategic plan, because in that you can see where the school's going, what are their goals. I love this. I think this is fantastic. Thanks, April. I love it. Yeah, I love the multi-talented science teacher.
Now she's search for it and post it and embarrass me. It's awesome.
Of course, because that's what friends do.
Exactly.
So when we're looking at that strategic plan, finding how you resonate with that. I would also say, like for your interview, if you look at the district, look at their mission statement, and if you can talk about how you resonate with that in your cover letter, in your resume, showing interest in that district is also going to set you apart whenever you're coming in for those first round, second round interviews. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And seeing how that mission statement and their vision statement aligns with your values. I mean, it might not.
Yes.
And that's okay to say no to that. Because every
school
is going to have one. But if it's not really something that you're going to buy into, you can't just jump on that and be like, yeah, we're all about kids, but like, okay, we got to go beyond that part. Everyone's like kids. So like, how is this school? I mean, that's a question. Once you get to that interview phase, it's like, that would be a good question to ask your staff or the people that are on that panel. How do you live out the mission statement of this school? And then you're putting those folks on the spot a bit, and you're really thinking about, oh, is this staff really a staff that has those conversations a lot? Like, do they talk about the value of or the goals and the drive of this school frequently? Or is it just something that they put on a website to, I don't know, just be on the website because we have to have a mission statement? I think they're...
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure that out until you get into the school, but that's certainly something you can do in an interview, is kind of ask about that. I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Yeah, absolutely. So when they say, do you have questions? And you're like, nope. No, you absolutely do have questions. And that is a great one.
Gotta have 3
always have questions.
Minimum. Come on. Yeah, that's a must.
I love that. That's a great one. So how do you live out the mission statement and your building each day? And yeah, I love that. That's great. So in the beginning, you had mentioned like going beyond the website, going beyond that mission statement, and doing a school visit. And I've never heard of that. Could you share a little bit more about going on a school visit without sounding like super creepy?
No.
Yeah.
No. So I'll just speak from experience. So I interviewed for 2 different places, and both of them. So I shouldn't say that. I interviewed for one that on a Monday, and then that same day, right after that interview, I had already had the job offered to me, but I wanted to take a school visit. And so then I went and visited, about an hour and a half of where I live right now. And it just gave me this feeling of like, okay, I got to meet, the potential teachers I'd be working with. I got to walk around the halls. I got to see lunch. I got to see how kids interacted. I got to see how teams collaborated and talk with administrators and just kind of feel the vibe of the school. And that's kind of
I love that.
You can't really it's kind of hard to put words into it, but if you just feel like yeah, I could see myself spending 12 hours a day here. Like I could see myself spending
Minimum.
next year grading and being a teacher and really living it. Then that's probably the place for you. The reason I didn't take that job is because I was going because an administrator that I love is the only person that I knew there and worked there. And my dad said, hey, don't follow an administrator just because you love them. Because they won't always be there. And so
Right.
I didn't feel like the vibe was right for me. It didn't fit some other check boxes in my, what I had for my prerequisites, but I really wanted to work with this guy, and because I just loved his passion, his energy, it just wasn't the right time. And I had to be okay saying no. And I'm loving the school I'm currently at. But taking that school visit, just asking, saying, hey, I'm a new teacher. Like, there's nothing wrong with asking. Let's just eliminate this
Yes.
idea out there that asking is weird and creepy. Like, do you have an idea how many principals want you to come visit? Like, they need people. We want people to visit. Like, that shows
Yes.
so much about you and your character and the willingness to learn about a school. I mean, take a visit.
I love that. That's so fun. And you can do these visits if you're at home, for student teaching, or if you're on a break, which, it's hard to do breaks now. But in May and before school's let out, ask to do a visit. Now, it might be different with COVID, coming into the building, but always ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And it just goes to show, hey, you're interested in this district and you're interested in this school. And I think that's fantastic.
Yes, and it just gives you, and imagine if you visited that school, when you go into your interview now, like, you're going to feel so much more comfortable. And that just brings
Absolutely.
the level by tenfold just by knowing what the building looks like inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I love that
Sorry,
strategy. That's a really good one. So when we think about, we talk about researching the school, be nosy on social media, look through their website, check out their strategic plan, their year at a glance, all those things. What about finding that fit? And we're kind of getting around it right now where we're talking about, visiting the school and things like that. But if it's the summertime and we're interviewing and school's not in session, how do we find the right fit for us and be patient to find that right fit?
Yeah, that's a super tough question because it's
I know.
different for everyone. Because luckily for me, I grew up with teachers as parents. And so I was able to have so many conversations before I ever even had to think about interviewing to really have an idea of what the pulse should be of a school and like the types of conversations and things I should be looking for. So I think for new teachers listening, you really need to do a look in the mirror moment with yourself. Figure out, okay, what do I really want out of a school that I might work for 30 years? And that's like a tough question to answer. But if you start picking away at like all the little things that you really are wanting and looking for, you might find some themes. You might find a couple themes that would help cross off a couple of options and get you closer to where you want to be. Really knowing who you are as a person is going to be helpful. And that's tough for college kids coming out,
Yeah.
Things I would say maybe is like your philosophy of teaching kids. If you understand your philosophy deeply and you get into an interview situation where you get a vibe and you're teaching a lesson and you can see or even ask questions about how do you manage your classroom, but if it doesn't really align with, if it seems like commonly it doesn't align, then maybe that's not the place for you. I mean, just thinking about, and maybe this is for new teachers as well, is just how you'll be supported too. So, I mean, knowing yourself is a huge component because it helps you figure out what to look for. But then B, once you're there, we can't catch everything. You're not going to know everything about a school. But knowing how you'll be supported is huge because we're all going to face challenges as first-year teachers and new teachers. And so when that undoubtedly happens, it'd be nice to know how you're going to be supported. What does the mentoring look like? What do the leadership opportunities look like? What are the roles for new teachers? Am I going to be off in an island by myself, or am I actually going to have a voice within the staff? Luckily for my school, I'm mentored by 2 different people. We have weekly meetings. Plus, I've been, you got a little cat doing camp.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. And then luckily enough, I've had staff members and administration plug me into different leadership positions and different committees and feel like I have a voice, even just as a first-year teacher. And so, but those are all things that new teachers looking for schools can be asking in those interviews and making clear that that's something that's on their mind.
I love how you're talking about the leadership roles, the mentoring. Those are huge components for a first-year teacher. Absolutely. Now, Hunter, before we end tonight, would you be able to share, and this is kind of on the spot, but you're a newer teacher.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice that you wish that you knew whenever you were student teaching or interviewing that you know now that you wish you knew back then? A whole year and a half earlier.
Ooh, okay, so say it again. So when I was student teaching, something I wish I knew.
Yeah, so, yep.
All right. Ooh. That not everything was going to be like my student teaching experiences.
Tell me more.
So I had two very different student teaching experiences. One was in a 5th grade classroom, both in the same district. One was in a 6/7th grade classroom. And both teachers had their strengths, had their weaknesses, and I learned very different things from them. But then changing districts to the district I work now, things are totally done in a very different way. Or what I thought was the same grading style is completely rolled out a different way here. The way I thought strong teaching looked in different schools looks different in the school I'm at. And so, I mean, just understanding that when you're in that student teaching role, everything's not going to be perfect. But also don't think that your student teacher is always going to, or your cooperating teacher, is the end all be all. There are so many different ways to teach well, and understand that there are different perspectives out there. And so the biggest thing that you can do is ask questions constantly. Just ask as many questions as you possibly can, because it's going to give you the most perspective. And I would say, even beyond that, doing a podcast, you know this probably just as well as I do, people want to give you advice. People want to give you information. They want to help you out and be successful. We are in the team people business. We want to help each other. And so as a potential teacher, any teacher that you email or send a question to, or even administrator, superintendent, I email superintendents and they'd respond. Just ask the question. So, I mean, understanding that there are going to be different perspectives and processing that for yourself while you're student teaching, but then being willing to ask the question to those cooperating teachers, as well as other educators, to round out that perspective. And then, like I said earlier, that helps you figure out, okay, where am I on the spectrum, right? That's what we figure out as new teachers. But sorry, that was a lot jammed into that question.
No, that's good. Ask questions. Know that your student teaching experience is not the end all be all. Your cooperating teachers, many types of teaching excellence in the classroom, and it looks different with different learners as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So tonight we talked about, sorry, the cat's coming back over, I'm kind of leading away from him. So tonight we talked about how to research a school, going beyond that mission statement and looking into the year at a glance, looking into their strategic plan. How do you resonate with that mission statement? We talked about how to have patience and being okay if a school is not the right fit for you, and that is okay. It is okay, friends. Seeing if you can get a school visit, that would be really beneficial as well. And then, of course, tips for our student teachers out there as they are rocking it as they're ending their student teaching placement in April or May. Hunter, you have an amazing podcast. How can my viewers/listeners check out what you have going on over in your podcast?
That's so nice to say. So the Ed Essentials podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Anchor, so you can subscribe there. Or just DM me with any questions you have. I just love communicating and chatting with people. That's what we're all about. That's why I started. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a year and a half in. And the only reason I started a podcast was to just learn and grow from people, because people are so willing to share. But for some reason, it just makes it easier when it's on a podcast. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And April, I loved, is this the April that was on your show?
Yeah, April.
That is commenting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that episode. I also liked Ray's and your roommate. I forget his name, the substitute, but he did a great job too. Yeah.
Oh, he's going to give me a hard time. I'll have to tell him you said that. He loves
it. Yay! Fantastic. I mean, that's a perspective that we don't get a lot from the substitute teacher. And so he did a great job. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
I appreciate you having me on. Please, people listening, just ask questions. The information's out there. Don't be afraid to ask just because you're new. Get after it. You got a great professor and teacher in Sam here. So.
Oh, thank you. I don't think any of my students are on, but that's okay.
You'll email.
These are,
sure.
Yeah.
Homework assignment.
Thanks, Hunter. I'll see you soon. Have a great day, everyone. This is going to be out on the podcast. I think I'm going to put it out in about 2 weeks, as we'll have a couple of people checking it out later. If you guys need any help with interviewing or researching that school, hit us up over in DMs. We're happy to help anytime. And best of luck in the job search. Bye for now.
See ya.